Hello and welcome to the Bible study on the book of Romans. We are in chapter 9, and in the last one we went through verses 1 through 13, and we're looking at God, who in his divine right does what he wants to do, but he's holy and he's righteous in his decisions. And so today we're going to look at what Paul is contending with the Jews as we begin looking at Romans chapter 9 verses 14 through 18. What shall we say then? There is no injustice with God, is there? May it never be. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. So then, it does not depend on the man who wills or the man who runs, but on God who has mercy. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, for this very purpose I raised you up, to demonstrate my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed throughout the whole earth. So then, he has mercy on whom he desires, and he hardens whom he desires. God cannot be unjust, because that would go completely against who he is. And this is where the fear of the Lord comes in, knowing that he is completely just and righteous to give or not give mercy, to give or not give compassion when he wants and to whom he wants to complete his objective. This is not about what we will or what we desire. It's not about running. In other words, we can have this desire to get to the end quickly, but it's not about how we think it should be or go. But I want to examine some historical documentations so that you can see God's true justice. God did say in Exodus chapter 7 verse 3, but I will harden Pharaoh's heart that I may multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But then you study and you read in Exodus 8 verse 32, it says, but Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also, and he did not let the people go. And when you read and study, Pharaoh continued in his unbelief. And it was not until Exodus 10 verse 1 that it changes. And now it says, and the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that I may perform these signs of mine among them. So God is and did harden the Pharaoh's heart because he continued not to see truth, to not acknowledge God, despite all the proof that was in front of him. And there is some deep revelation in those words if you think about it. Paul continues in verses 19 through 21. You will say to me then, why does he still find fault? For who resists his will? On the contrary, who are you, O man, who answers back to God? The thing molded will not say to the molder, why did you make me like this? Will it? Or does not the potter have a right over the clay, to make from the same lump one vessel for honorable use and another for common use? So this is fascinating because it's a direct reflection back of what God did with Jeremiah when he sent him to the potter. And you can read this in Jeremiah 18 and 19. But I want to share what God showed me when I was studying it with him. You know, the potter wanted to make the clay into a beautiful vessel, but the clay was spoiled. It refused to run in the potter's hands. It was corrupted. It was evil in his sight and refused to obey his voice. The clay had a choice. It simply had to turn back to reform its ways, but because it refused to hear the potter remade the vessel into a crude vessel. God was speaking of Israel. Most were doing evil in the sight of the Lord, but not all, especially not Jeremiah. God said if they would turn, which means they had a choice, and then he would relent. But Israel did not listen to Jeremiah. Let's look at verses 22 through 24 in chapter 9. What if God, although willing to demonstrate his wrath and to make his power known, endured with great patience vessels of wrath prepared for destruction, and did so to make known the riches of his glory upon vessels of mercy, which he prepared beforehand for glory, even us, whom he also called, not from among Jews only, but also from among Gentiles. To the Jew he is saying, this is not just about you, it's also about these Gentiles that are among you whom God has shown mercy. God knew that he was going to open up the gospel to others. He said it to Abraham thousands of years before it came to fruition. And it says in verses 25 through 26 of chapter 9 that, as he said also in Hosea, I will call those who are not my people, and her who is not my beloved, beloved. And it shall be that in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there they shall be called sons of the living God. Okay, we're going to stop this lesson right here. We've gone through Romans chapter 9, verses 14 through 26. Join me on the next one as we finish up looking at the rest of chapter 9. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.